Today's guest loves his tennis. Join me now, it's Minot tennis pro Marc White. You've seen him everywhere. If you've been to Cameron and Hammond, among other spots around here, just playing a great game. What drew you to tennis as your favorite sport, Marc?
Oh, it's a great question, Ben. You know, I grew up playing all sports. We played football, a lot of basketball, baseball, but I think the tennis, I was lucky enough, the tennis boom was starting off, and my sisters played tennis. I got a hold of her rackets and went on the backboard, and never stopped. So it was an exciting time.
So right now you're in Minot as a teaching pro. Tell me a little bit about where you got to compete as one.
I started off pretty much like everyone should, as a kid, playing small tournaments, playing in town tournaments. Fortunately, we had a lot of little towns where I grew up, and each town would have tournaments. We'd play little tournaments, and you'd play maybe on your high school team, and then in college, and then after that, started to play some small money tournaments. But it was really starting off small. And I encourage the kids here, play your local club, play in your local town, and then work yourself up to bigger events, from the town to the county to the state to even a national level.
Who are some of the prominent players that you've gotten a chance to? I don't know if you've played against them or just got a chance to meet them or see them live.
Yeah, great question, Ben. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to a lot of pro events, but when I grew up in Maryland, we had a lot of young players who actually made it to play professionally at a pretty high level. So growing up, the guys like Harold Solomon, and we had Lenny Schloss. You might not know that name. These were all Maryland guys who were pro players. Claude England, he was a really good player. And I had a coach, his name was Mike Barnes. He was a pro player, and he coached me, but I was around all those guys who were beginning their pro career, so it really inspired me. But the big names that everyone really thinks about in my generation were like Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe, and luckily enough, I got a chance to meet both of those guys, so I'm really was privileged to do that.
Has tennis ever seen anybody like Johnny Mac ever? And did you upset him ever?
Has tennis ever seen anybody like Johnny? Well, first of all, John McEnroe, one of the most talented players of all time, particularly been with his hands. What a great volleyer. And if you have forgotten, John was left-handed, so he had a great swinging serve, and he could back it up with his volley. So to think of other players, maybe Stefan Edberg was a great player in the 80s and 90s who had a great serve and volley, but really I would have to say Roger Federer. Roger has all the shots, and like John, he uses a lot of different spins, so there's a lot of variety in his game. So it's enjoyable to watch Roger Federer just like McEnroe. So they hit with underspin and topspin, lots of different spins, and great tacticians, really great creative players.
I even watched a video recently of Federer. He's like you said, dialed into the spins. He was going up to argue to the chair ump, obviously not in the same temperament as John McEnroe would do. But he said that like the other player had a double bounce, and there was definitely a double bounce because you could tell by like the spin of the ball. Like, he didn't get the call, but still you could kind of see like how meticulous he takes like the game and his craft to kind of have that perspective when you're just going to like argue and stuff. So from the places that you've been to where you are now, how do you end up in Minot?
Well, I think someone asked me that the other day, and I flew up to Minot for the rec department here in Minot to kind of help them. I did some clinics for like one full day, and kind of got to see the city and got to see kind of the vision of what they wanted to do. They were trying to expand tennis, so it was kind of like an interview, and then I gave them some ideas, but I wasn't really thinking about relocating here at the time. And then a couple months later, after some talks, I thought, what a great opportunity. Hammond Park was just built, and we were going to add a lot of new programs. So I came up, and it's been this is my 6th year now, Ben. So it's been great.
Sweet. So tell me a little bit about how far you've seen these facilities come along now that you bring up Hammond just being put up.
Yeah, the last couple of years, we've really tried to upgrade almost all the facilities. Starting with Cameron, we've added some new things to Cameron, sprucing it up, and we're going to continue to do that. Of course, South Hill tennis courts. Last year, there's 2 courts up there. We resurfaced those. A lot of our viewers or our listeners might not know this, but we resurfaced Hammond Park in early August of this summer. So they're completely been resurfaced, and we're looking at doing some things out at Green Valley and Roosevelt for next year.
So tell me a little bit about just you can teach at many different levels of skill, and you probably had the choice. Why did you want to teach everything from beginning to advanced rather than I don't know if it's specializing or whatnot, or just picking the best players to work with?
Yeah, well, what's happened in our game is we sometimes would put some of the best coaches with the best players, okay? And then someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, maybe with someone just starting off. But that's really not a very good system, because what we need to do in tennis is grow the bottom, grow our base. And so the kids are the future. And I really enjoy breaking down the strokes and showing the kids how easy it is. I never really had that. I kind of had to do it on my own. But there's a lot of coaches that are just working with high-performing players, working with college-level players, coaching pro-level players. I've been fortunate to work at private clubs. I've worked with very high-level players, and it's rewarding at both spectrums. So every Saturday, as you know, Ben, I have what I call the Super Saturday Superstars, and I have 10 and under kids. Well, those 10 and under kids are really improving, and that's going to be our future high school tennis team in a few years. So I enjoy all of it.
Since you've gotten here, who have been some of the best local players that you've seen come up?
Oh, my. Some of the best local players. Well, I have to probably start with a couple of my favorite, Connor Templeton and Charlie Wentz, Mason Deal. Those guys were really great. I think I was around them when they were in 8th grade or so, maybe 9th grade, and they really put a lot of hard work in, got involved in our academies here and trained and played well in the high school team. Of course, the Agee sisters, they are great, both very talented. Kylie Asvis, she was a great talent. I think she went down and played at St. Mary's down in Bismarck.
You married?
Yeah. Yep. And then, we've got some new young players. I'm really high on Hunter Rice and Kobe Hop. They're on the high school tennis team now, and they're really committed. They're committed to improving, and they're really becoming quality tennis players.
How much commitment does it take to be a good player in North Dakota at the levels that you'll compete at around here? And then in the bigger picture, to play professionally?
Well, what we're trying to do is develop a tennis culture with our kids, so they don't just play for a couple months out of the season. And that's hard because there's so much competition, different sports, different activities. So the nice thing is we can play year-round, and here at the Park District, we've got the beautiful indoor facility, so we can play year-round. And so I'm encouraging, and we have opportunities and programs like our academy where kids can play year-round and really improve. And there needs to be that kind of commitment, but at the same time, I encourage the kids to do other sports, do other activities, and enjoy the experience.
What does building a skill in another sport, where can that show up in somebody's tennis game? Like, just give me an example.
Yeah, great question. I'll give you two good ones, and I use these almost every day. With the serve, most kids have a hard time with the biomechanics of the serve, just the mechanics of hitting a serve. Well, a baseball player, particularly a pitcher, but all baseball players, they've been throwing a ball their whole life, okay? So the throwing of a ball, that is exactly the same motion you want when you serve. So the quarterback of the local high school football team probably could be a pretty good tennis player and a good athlete and could serve well. So I have my students throw a football as a warm-up when we work on our serves, and it's very effective to helping the service motion, and it's just makes an athlete more well-rounded when they do other sports. Many of the top players, Ben, that you like, Nadal and Roger, the European players, they all grew up playing soccer, football for them, our American soccer, and tennis. So the balance and the footwork has helped their tennis.
Fantastic. So a recent story that I did for the news with you guys, which is a little different angle than what we've been talking about already, has been the adaptive lessons that you guys were able to do with the Prairie Grit athletes. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of map those types of lessons out, and then what do you as coaches kind of get out of being able to do something like that for the community?
Yeah, well, Prairie Grit, what a great organization, you know. We teamed up with them. Crystal there does a great job. And we did some clinics this summer. You were out there. Appreciate you coming out. Just a fantastic opportunity for the kids and us to share some great camaraderie and have some fun on the tennis court. And it's very rewarding for me. And I'm fortunate enough, Ben, I did some Special Olympics work with Dennis Vandermeer, the famous coach from South Africa, who had a big tennis center in Hilton Head. I worked for Dennis, and Dennis was really instrumental in wheelchair tennis and Special Olympics. So it's a good fit for me, and in the future we're going to do more with Prairie Grit. They're just a great organization, and we're going to expand what we did this summer with them.
That's great, man. So when you're looking at just the overall landscape, you've mentioned a lot of prominent players already that you can kind of compare their skills or like how they've gotten better. Overall, who do you consider to be like the best players of all time?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go generational with you now because, you know, I've kind of lived through a lot of these players. Now, I'm going to start off. Here's a player that most people don't remember or they have forgotten about, and I always like to bring his name out because I know who your favorite player is, but I'm going to start off with a player that everybody should at least look up, Pancho Gonzalez. Pancho Gonzalez was a great player. He beat basically everyone in his eras. This is in the late 50s and 60s. And then Pancho Gonzalez didn't really play a lot of the, like Wimbledon and a lot of these tournaments because he was playing and accepting money. But then after that, I've got to certainly look at the Australian players, Rod Laver, who I got a chance to meet. What a great player, won the Grand Slams 2 times. And then there was other Australian players, Ken Rosewell. Then, of course, we had John McEnroe, and Jimmy Connors, one of my favorites. Jimmy Connors brought tennis to the public. He was like the Pete Rose Ben of tennis. He was great. And there were so many players in the 80s, you know, Pat Cash, Yvonne Lindell, Boris Becker. You know, a few years ago, I think you got a chance to meet him. We brought up Tim Wilkinson. He was one of those players in the 80s and the 90s of the great tennis players. Came up here to Minot and did some clinics and camps with us. Roger, the top 4, Roger, Nadal, Djokovic, and Andy Murray. For the last 20 years, those guys have taken tennis to another level, and it doesn't get any better. Everybody should enjoy watching those guys now. It's just fantastic what's going on.
wanted to get your thoughts of another notable tennis event in history was Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King, the battle of the sexes. What was kind of? Did you have any kind of idea? I don't want to date you or anything, but did you have a perspective going into that? And what are your thoughts on the results of that?
Well, I was just a little kid when that happened.
Yeah.
But I heard a lot of stories because, Dennis Vandermeer was coaching Billie Jean King at that. And so I think what was remarkable about that event, it was the most watched sporting event of its time, and it was at the Houston Astrodome. It was just incredible. It was a big build-up. Bobby Riggs was a great player in his day. I think he was like 55 years old, and Billie Jean was probably like 35 or 30 or so. And it was just a fantastic event to promote tennis. And we need to do more things like that. We need to do more promotion and fun events to get the tennis interest up.
Something that probably maybe wasn't the best for the game, but definitely had people's interest in the last year or so was, Serena kind of got upset about losing to Osaka when she won the U.S. Open, about how, she just had a kid, and I'm a mom now, so I wouldn't, lie and cheat. And then Novak Djokovic just clocking these line officials, man. It's been crazy recently.
Well, yeah. What can you say? The Serena incident, that was not good. That wasn't really good for tennis, of course. No one wants to see that. It's not a great role model. Of course, she is a great player. But tennis reveals a lot, Ben. When you win, of course, we're all happy. But then when things don't go your way, it affects you. But we're supposed to be able to deal with that on an even level, and that's what it's all about. You learning sportsmanship and dealing with it, and so that's why Roger is so good. And so that was not good sportsmanship we had. Now with Djokovic, he's such a great guy, a good hard worker. His incident that happened recently, that was completely an accident. Now, he was frustrated, but he didn't have any intention on, hitting anybody. It was, a real incidental thing. So I feel he just had some bad luck going his way. So he's a good guy and a good sport.
Did you ever have a time where you were like, crap, I just flew off the handle playing tennis?
Yeah, not too much.
All right.
Not too much. You keep it all in perspective, but it's good to see emotions, but we really want to give good examples for the kids. The days when a lot of the kids they'll throw a racket because they see one of these pro players throw a racket and they think it's kind of cool. But I try to teach all the kids to take care of their equipment. Take care of that racket. It costs a lot of money. Take good care of it. Shine it up. So I think we have more better role models than not. But it's not good to see the poor sportsmanship.
All right. So of all these names that we've gone over, if you could play your dream match, or just invite someone up to Minot to book for teaching a lesson to these kids, who would you pick?
Okay. Oh boy, that's a tough question. I'm gonna go with four people. It's gonna be doubles. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be doubles. I can't narrow it down to just one. It's gonna be double. I'm gonna bring up Jimmy Connors. Jimmy Connors, I love to have Jimmy Connors come here or go to take him to dinner or play some doubles with Connors. Rod Laver, certainly Roger Federer would be great, and the fourth, I'm going to invite my old coach, Mike Barnes. He's down in Florida. He's the number one player down in Florida in his age group, and he kind of inspired me, and we would have a great conversations with Roger and Connors and Rod Laver and Mike Barnes. That'd be awesome. Play tennis and go to dinner, or do a clinic for all the kids here. It'd be great.
If you're giving a lesson number one to a brand new player, or if you're telling an experienced player, this is the area where you need to maintain the most fundamentals, what is that, and what pro do you tell them to watch for that?
That's a great question, Ben. There's a lot of different aspects to tennis, but it's really all about the point of contact of where you hit the ball in relationship to your body. You don't want it to get close to you. So hitting the ball and knowing your point of contact where it's in front of your body versus, if it's on a serve or a volley or a ground stroke, hitting the ball in front and being balanced. And back in the day, it would be Ken Rosewell or somebody like Connors, but really Roger Federer is the master of balance and hitting the ball cleanly and early. I always used to have players hit the ball on the rise. You don't hear that too much anymore, but hit the ball on the rise, so hit it early. And it's a timing thing. Roger makes it look so easy, but that's what he's doing, Ben. He's hitting the ball early in front of him, and he's balanced. He's maintaining his balance. So that's the secret of great tennis.
All right. Glad to hear some more secrets today, Mark. And, hey, just really appreciate you taking the time as we pretty much get ready this week, especially when we're taping, to move from Hammond Park into Cameron for probably a little while. But thanks, man.
We this week we're Saturday actually we have a big day. The weather's changing, so we're open up here at Cameron Indoor. So we want to invite the whole community to come up and see us. And Ben, I want to thank you for all you do for the community and all the sports. I'm always seeing you do a lot of great things, and you're a real asset to our community. So appreciate it, Ben, everything you do.
Hey, man, that's really kind. Thanks a lot, Mark. That's Marc White, Minot Tennis Pro.